Welcome, everyone. I am Justin Paperny with Prison Professors and White Collar Advice. I know you're busy with so many things competing for your attention, so let me jump in and try to provide you with some value, which is always my goal. Today is the 18th of August, a Saturday, and 2 days ago on the 16th marked my 9-year anniversary of my release from federal prison. And while meeting with a new client in Calabasas, he asked me, what is the biggest mistake you've made as a consultant as you reflect back on 9 and 10 years? And I know I've made a number of mistakes, but with respect to working as a prison consultant, the biggest mistake, and I share it because I think it will help you, as embarrassing as it is to admit, the biggest mistake I made actually happened with my first ever client. I mean, it was terrible. It had rumblings of my career as a stockbroker. When I was a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch, the first big stock I ever took down was Oracle, ORCL on the NASDAQ. I took down like 50,000 shares, sold it to my clients, and the next day it dropped like 40%. Like arguably my first day as a broker, horrific, embarrassing. And I had to tell people, yes, the first stock I've recommended is in the absolute toilet. I'm sorry, stick with me. So that was not a great way to start my brokerage career. And similarly, as a prison consultant, I didn't do the best service to my first client. As a reminder, I wrote a blog in prison. I wrote my book, Lessons from Prison. So I had some traction immediately after I was released from the Vinewood Halfway House in Hollywood. And a very fine gentleman called from Idaho, wanted to hire me, had read my book and blogs, and said, I want to hire you. I've reviewed your work. What does it take to work with you? And I said, well, what do you mean? Let's just work. He's like, well, what does it cost? And I said, well, that's a good question. I have no idea. I just got out of prison. I've been working 18 hours a day for free. I've been earning 15 cents an hour in the chow hall. Like, whatever. Let me just help you. It's like, Justin, you have to ask me for some money. I said, well, all right. You'd never think that I was a stockbroker at one point who managed hundreds of millions of dollars or sold high-end real estate at Sotheby's. As a reminder, I sold real estate for 3 years before I went to jail. I was not ready to respond. So I said, well, what do you propose? He said, let me send you $4,000. I said, okay, just send me 2 to start. Let's make sure we're the right fit. Let's make sure we're making some progress. He said, fine, I'll send you $2,000. And he did. And from there, we prepared for his sentencing and much of the things that we talk about, how I think a defendant should prepare. I won't spend time on this video discussing it. The day of his sentencing, the probation officer asked for 48 months. His sentencing range was 41 to 51 months. And as a consultant, clients usually reach out to me right after they've been sentenced. I'm waiting to get a text or a call to get an update. And after my client was sentenced, I was waiting. And I was waiting. And 1 became 3, became 4, became 5, became 6 and 7 hours. And after about 3 or 4 hours, I realized I had failed my client. I had done him a disservice. He had been remanded at sentencing, been remanded to custody. And I did not prepare him for prison. I was foolish, naive, presumed that he would be able to self-surrender to federal prison as I did. And because of that foolishness, I did not take the time to prepare him for prison. I mean, nothing, zilch. And there he was, remanded to custody in this new world of confinement without preparations or without being prepared. And I'd done a terrible job. And I had to know why. And I just waited. And the next day, his son Jeff called me. And I said, Jeff, I'm so sorry I failed you. And he laughed. He said, it's fine. It's totally good. My dad's there. He's doing great. He got a great outcome. And I said, what does that mean? What was the outcome? He got 36 months in prison. I said, okay, well, the government recommended 48 months. The range was 41 to 50 when he got 36. But what happened? Why did they remand him to custody? And his son told me that the victims were so upset at his sentence that as a way to make an example out of our client, they had him remanded at sentencing, a way to make the victims feel better, because he had hurt a lot of victims, and he acknowledged that, and he knew that. So I think, one, to help justify the shorter sentence and the drug recommendation, which was really going to shorten his time on the inside, he only ended up serving 13 months on a 36-month sentence. As a result of the benefit he got on his sentence, the judge punished him by having him be remanded. And I also think the judge feared for his safety. My client lived in a very small town. Many of the people in that town he had defrauded. And I think the judge thought, going back to that town for 6 weeks before you surrender might not be in your best interest. So for those reasons, he was remanded to sentencing. I didn't prepare him. And I told the son, I'm sending all of your money back. And he laughed. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You're so grateful for the work he did. He got a great outcome. I said, I didn't prepare your father for prison. And he's in this new foreign world of confinement. I'm sorry. So perhaps it was my Jewish guilt. But over the next 6 months, I sent $2,000 of the 4 back to my client in prison to help cover his commissary. So what's the takeaway for all of you? Why are you watching this video as I embarrassingly share the biggest mistake I've made as a federal prison consultant? There's a chance you get remanded at your sentencing. Even on very short sentences, I've had clients get remanded. In some cases, they've asked to be remanded because they wanted to get the clock started. And those are really one of the two benefits of getting remanded at sentencing. One, the clock does get started. You immediately begin to get credit for time in jail rather than waiting for 8 weeks to self-surrender as I did. There's benefit there. Two, you begin to get a different perspective of confinement. Clients of mine who've been in county jail or transit or holding centers who ultimately make their way to the camp now have a comparison. When I surrendered to the camp, it felt like prison to me. I hadn't been anywhere else. But if you've been in transit and then you work your way down to a camp, you now have these comparisons, and you will feel much more free in a low, as clients have told me, and certainly in a camp if you've endured transit. So there are some pros to getting remanded at sentencing. So that's why I wanted to share this video with all of you. If you're getting sentenced to prison, and even if you think the sentence is going to be short, if I'm guiding you or if someone else is guiding you, it is integral that you are prepared for prison in advance of your surrender in the off chance that you get remanded at sentencing. I've joked, or not joked, I've talked about these competitors that I'm suing and for writing these horrific things about me. And I have all these court records that I'm going to show. This is the one time I've earned an authentic and terrible review. Just my client had a lot of class and he forgave me and said, "You made a mistake. We all make mistakes in life, Justin. You apologized. And if anything, I got the clock started sooner." And he just handled it so graciously, and I was so grateful for that. I just couldn't believe it was my first ever client. But thankfully, 9 years later, I've not made the mistake again, though in retrospect, I should have known. And now you know. If you're going to be sentenced to prison, prepare in case you get remanded. That's all I have on this Saturday. Now I'm going to go do daddy stuff this weekend. I'm going to buy popsicles, balloons, paper plates, and a cake for a party we're having here this afternoon for my daughter. And I'm going to be hanging out and watching my 2-month-old son, or 2.5-month now, son Jason, who's doing just great. Thank you all for checking out our channel. Very grateful you give us a few minutes of our time. Learn from my most horrific mistake as a prison consultant and prepare for prison before your sentencing, just in case you get remanded. And that's all I got for today. I'll be back soon. Thank you again for your time. I wish you all well. Thank you. Bye-bye.